Welcome back to Briggs on Books, our international talk show where we talk to authors from all over the world. But today, this moment, we're going to talk to an author all the way from somewhere in Colorado, MJ Edington. Welcome, MJ Edington.
And thank you for having me aboard.
Now, you're in Aurora, Colorado.
That's correct. It's right next door to Denver, and we try to stay out of there.
Now, like most people from Colorado, did you come from somewhere else?
Yep. I grew up in Illinois, and I came to Colorado when I was in my late teens, and I discovered country that wasn't flat. And that appealed to me, something with contours.
By the way, here's your book cover, Naked Came the Hunter. I know that's not your first book, but it's your latest.
Yes, it is.
Tell us a little bit about that book.
Well, imagine yourself waking up to find that you have been viciously mauled by somebody or something and left to die in the deep woods of the West Virginia mountains. Mm-hmm. Now, this poor guy is pretty sure he's on his way out. A couple of hikers come along and find him, and they decide to take him back to their nearby community, which turns out in the long run to be a nudist community. Now, there's no salacious material in this book. There's nothing erotic about it. It's just a straight up, this guy not only has to recover from his injuries, try and figure out what happened to him, how he got there, and everything else, but whether there's a danger to the community at large. And along the way, he has to deal with a significant dose of culture shock.
Yeah. Now, and so it's mostly set in West Virginia?
Yes, that's in West Virginia, and it's a fictitious community called the Eagle Mountain Naturist Enclave.
Yeah. So if you're watching from home, don't go and try to find the nudist place because MJ made it up, right?
Well, there's one out there, but
Okay.
there's one out there, and the guy that wrote me from West Virginia bought the book. Mm-hmm. He said, right across the road from us is Eagle Mountain. So there apparently is an Eagle Mountain over there.
Okay. Now
I created the whole thing whole cloth.
Yeah. Now you came from, you said Illinois, and went to Colorado. You became, I don't know if you used a different term besides bounty hunter. What was that?
Fugitive recovery agent. We prefer that because there's a lot of bad information about the BH word.
Yeah.
So we avoid that, and a lot of that has been caused by certain individuals that go on television and show all types of brutality that we don't really engage in.
You don't
Yes,
need that.
we do get into some tough situations. There are times when we have to scrap with somebody, but it's the rarity, it's the exception, not the commonality.
And you were a private detective. That sounds quite romantic, like the Jim Rockford kind of thing.
Well, it's a lot more romantic sounding than it is in actuality. You haven't lived until you've sat 12 hours in your car in the steaming heat of summer or the frigid cold of winter doing surveillance, trying to get pictures of somebody moving around or whatever. And it's a lot tougher than it looks.
Yeah.
TV makes it look real good. That looks like fun. Yeah, give it a try. Right. It's got a lot of negatives to it, but the reason I got into writing books is because we had this thing called COVID come along. And all of a sudden, people weren't hiring private detectives too much because there just wasn't anybody moving around very much with lockdowns going on. And as a fugitive recovery agent, there weren't too many people you could go out and fetch and take to jail because the sheriffs would say, oh no, we don't want him here. We don't know if he's got COVID or not. We don't want our facility getting contaminated. So you'd end up having to cut him loose after a lot of work to fetch him in the first place.
Yeah. Now you had some time on your hand because of COVID. Did you start thinking of a story, or did you just sit down and start writing it?
Well, no, I've had stories on my mind, and I keep coming up with new ones. And my first one was called Cyclone Kid, about man who's a hard rock miner in an isolated area called Cyclone Creek. He has a gold mine, and he discovers that he has a 16-year-old son he never knew existed. Meanwhile, in Boston, there's a spoiled, rotten, rich kid who's been raised in a affluent home, went to a prestigious school for boys, and he's told he has a father nobody ever told him about. He thought he was an in vitro specimen. Well, they get thrown together by tragedy, and the sparks fly right from the get-go. But they have to learn to live together and eventually form a bond of a father and son.
Yeah, that sounds like a fascinating book as well. Now, there was one more in between. Is that right?
Yeah, it's called The Reapers, and it's basically a fictitious novel about the upcoming Civil War. And I'm hoping we don't have a Civil War, but there's a lot of people making noise about that. And so I can't rule out the possibility. But in the meanwhile, I could write a book about it.
There you go.
And just as I was writing that book, somebody put together a TV movie or a movie called Civil War that's out right now. And it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
I like my book, but, you know, there's a lot of thought about the possibility that we could have an upheaval here in this country.
Well, it's thought-provoking. People need to get ready just in case. I mean, easy enough to store a little extra food and stuff like that. So.
Oh, I've got mine.
I bet you.
And I've also got ample amount of weaponry in case it should come to that, and I have to defend my home.
Yeah. I raised my kids. We used to garden. I said, well, no, we have to be ready in case something happens. So we had gardening and we had our guns. They said, why do we need the guns? Said, in case the neighbors come and try to take our garden. That's why.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And on top of that, where we live, we're not likely to see too much going on over here. Denver would be a no-go zone like it was when they had the riots back in the early 20s. And we had some here, but it seemed to focus on the town central areas, not out here where we live. And we're out here far enough to the northeast that given a couple further blocks east, we'd probably qualify for a Kansas zip code.
Now, I know Denver's about a mile high. Where I am, we're about 300 feet above sea level. Where are you?
We're at 5410.
Wow.
5,410 feet.
Higher than Denver.
Yes.
Yeah.
So and there's other towns that are higher than Denver. You go to Leadville,
I did not know
you're pushing 2 miles there.
Oh, my goodness.
It's over 10,000 feet.
Well, you have something there that we don't know much about here in California. It snows every once in a while, I would imagine.
Well, it snows quite a bit. And, in fact, we had a snowstorm, I believe it was early June or the end of May. And they just had another one here about a week ago up in Montana. So you get in mountain country, that's part of the bargain that you do. But on the other end of the spectrum, we get about 300 days of sun over here, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
The cold isn't that cold. When I grew up as a boy in Illinois, I would deliver newspapers for the Chicago Sun-Times and the Daily Tribune, and I'd wear a ski mask where just the eyes and nose and mouth would hang out. I'd come home at the end of a day, pull that off, and the whole front of that was solid ice.
Wow. And it's a different kind of snow and cold in Colorado.
Yeah, it's we have a sub-arid climate here, so you don't get a lot of humidity.
Yeah.
I remember as a boy, you'd take a bottle of soda pop or something and set it on a table, and there'd be a ring of water around the bottom of that puppy in about a 5 minutes, 10.
Yeah.
Well, now you can have a bottle and set it on your counter, and you'll never see a puddle underneath it. We just don't have that much humidity.
I did not know that happened. Let's get back to this book now. Naked Came the Hunter. It's not erotica or anything like that. But
no, it's a mystery about what happened to this guy. Who is he? He had his head kicked around like a hacky ball, and he's got no idea who he is, where he came from, nothing. He's got amnesia. Now, he needs to figure things out. because if there's a threat out there in the forest, it may come to finish the job, or it may present peril to the entire community. And by the time he becomes halfway ambulatory, he has developed relationships with the people there, the people that saved him, the people that are caring for him, and he develops quite strong emotional attachments to folks. And the last thing he wants to see is trouble come down on them because they're taking care of him.
Yeah.
He considers leaving the community, but he's got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if there's that kind of a danger in the forest that could come down on the community, it could come down whether he's there or not.
MJ, who's going to read this book? Who will want to read this book? What's the genre?
Well, the genre is mystery. It's flat out mystery. Now, the people buying it right now are people that are into naturism. The British Naturism Society, the Naturist Society, the American Association of Nude Recreation. I'm getting a lot of sales from people there. I'm getting sales overseas, but they all appear to be naturists. Now, this is also something that I would like to talk about, because a lot of people tell me, I don't know how to broach this subject with relatives, friends, and whatnot, because their concept is basically the mythological thing that it's all about messing around and orgies or whatnot. They've been programmed with false information. This book shows him discovering what nudism is and what it is not along the way. As he learns it, the person that is not a nudist also learns the truth, the facts of what it really is and what it really isn't.
Okay. It's not really a orgy sexual thing. It's just people who like to be a little freer.
You go to a nudist park, you won't see any sexuality at all. And I've been to a few, and I can tell you I've never seen anything untoward going on. These are just people comfortable in their own skin who prefer not to carry their laundry with them.
Now, the cover, anybody buying it for the cover?
Excuse me.
I don't want to show this book to my wife because she's going to say, I want to read that. Let me back up. I'm going to show this book to my wife because she'll see the cover and she'll say, I want to read that.
Well, the cover it gives a good lay of the land as exists in the story.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of the woods. You got log cabins and whatnot in the community. A few, see, it happens.
We're catching it from each other.
I don't want to have contagion to you, but
I didn't get that. I didn't get that COVID virus, but I got a computer virus, so probably the same thing. Where can people get this book, MJ?
They can get this book on Amazon.com or Amazon UK if they're over in the United Kingdom. They have other outlets around the planet.
Yeah.
So the book is available to just about anybody anywhere through Amazon. It is available in paperback, hardcover, and also Kindle.
Okay.
So there's all those different availabilities. So you can get it and read it on pretty much any format you prefer.
Very good. By the way, MJ, right before we came on the air, I punched your name into Amazon, and boom, popped up 3 books. All 3 of your books are right there. Easy to find, easy to order. I tell our viewers, don't order one. I never order one. I always order 3 or 5 copies, and I give them away, and it's a lot of fun. So,
well, going back to what I was saying about people who are into naturism, and they don't know how to talk about it with friends or neighbors who are textile inclined.
Yeah.
Hey, buy them a copy of the book.
There you go.
Give it to them, let them read it, and they'll enjoy it for the fact of the mystery story that underlies the whole thing. And along the way, They'll learn about what naturism is and what it isn't, as the character does during the course of his stay with these folks.
Very good. And I just want to thank MJ for his time. And as I say, go order copies of the book. Give them to
Several.
Yeah, several copies. I always do. Thank you, MJ. Hope we have you back again. You're one of the easiest people to talk to I've ever had on the show.
Well, that's one of the problems. People tell me I'm verbose. I don't believe it. I think that's a lie.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a pleasure being with you today, and I hope to visit with you again in the future.
All right. MJ Edington. We'll be back with another author right after this.